So I want to do this video based off the back of a conversation that I had with someone yesterday, and I asked them if they would mind if I shared a bit of our conversation. They were fine with it. So, and this is the thing. Whilst I was talking to this person, they said they don't understand why they're not yet hitting this moment of bliss that's yet to come. And I tried to say, and I've tried to say in all of these videos, that there is no moment of hitting bliss. That's not going to happen. And I kind of really feel like this is something that's holding a lot of people back, because, and when I say holding back, even holding back kind of implies that there's somewhere forward that we need to go. But this is the trouble when you're trying to explain something that's invisible. You have to use words to explain that invisibility, and I think it's there that the confusion gets met, is because the words imply that something needs to happen, but what we're trying to say is doing nothing is doing the most. So there's not, I know you can hear stories of, like, Eckhart Tolle will tell you that they had this sudden realization, spontaneous type of what we're talking about here, spiritual awakening, this type of spiritual awakening that come off, and you know, and all these weird and wonderful things happen to them, and now we see the Eckhart Tolle that we know. But what you don't see is the life before that. This is what we have to take into account, that who we are now and why we're here is based off of a lifetime of unconscious acting and unconscious behaviours that may have led us into all sorts of chaos and traumas and weird and wonderful environments, all done as a coping mechanism to avoid feelings. And those feelings that were often trying to come up were the consciousness, were the real person saying, hey, something's wrong in your life, you need to address it. But we distract ourselves from that by doing all sorts of things. But that's the point with, just getting on the Eckhart Tolle bit again, his whole life was rife. His childhood wasn't that great. There was always this thing in him. He was always the odd person, the odd child. So he had his own inflictions to kind of go by before he had that moment. And then in that moment, that wasn't particularly enjoyable. He just had feelings underneath saying that everything's kind of okay. If you actually read his book, he tells you the story himself, and it's brilliant. And then he went on to be sitting on park benches for a couple of years in this state of, he uses the word, I think he might actually use the word bliss. It's been a while since I've listened to that story. But he uses a word like that. He just felt really good. But he will also explain that he felt a calmness. There was a calmness, but he still wasn't doing anything. He wasn't working much. He was just sitting on park benches and was basically allowing his life to dismantle around him. And then suddenly you get the realization of, I need to actually do some work. So this is the thing that I think some of us can get stuck on, is that there's the chaos, but underneath that chaos is these feelings of it's okay, everything's kind of okay. And I hope I haven't done Eckhart Tolle any kind of injustice there. I kind of spontaneously or accidentally used him off the top of my head because of the conversation that I was having with someone. But what we kind of need to remember is that, guys, we've been unconsciously working our life in the matrix for however many decades or years or whatever it is before we suddenly pay a sharp attention. Our whole life, our whole unconscious life, has been one long pathway leading us to this moment of the spiritual awakening, the moment of, like, where you see things, you know something's not there, you know something needs to be addressed. If something's not right, I said something not there. You know something's not right and something needs to be addressed, but you don't know what the addressing is. You don't know what needs to be addressed. And so you start searching stuff, and you read you come across spirituality, and you read spiritual things, and you watch spiritual channels like this. And that kind of implants, even if you might not now be thinking that you're waiting for a moment to happen, the chances are you are still waiting for that moment to happen. But this is why all my videos kind of all try to point in the same direction, that you actually feel this calmness and this peace that you're wanting. You feel that in the surrendering. The trouble is, with words like surrender, we can say to ourselves, okay, I'm ready to surrender. I'm ready to surrender. But then very quickly, and this might be so silent in us, very quickly they might say, okay, well, yeah, I've surrendered. Now what? Where's this feeling then? That's not surrendering. There's another question that's come up. So you've asked that question. And then when that question, okay, well, I really don't want to attach to these thoughts. I want to give them all up. I'm going to surrender this time. And I don't care if I don't feel anything afterwards. There's still a feeling under there of you're waiting for something to happen. The surrendering comes from realizing that you won't be able to make sense of surrendering. And I know that sounds so woo-woo, but it's like this acceptance of all the answers that the mind is chasing are not going to be answered. Once we understand that, we stop asking those questions. And it be that, if there is a moment of bliss, if there is a lifetime of this wonderfulness, if you like, it's there. When we realise that, oh, so I could potentially feel a little bit shitty for a very long time. Yes, is the answer. You could do. We've been playing this act for our whole lives, and now we're kind of in this battleground of, this is why I always do this, separating the consciousness from the mind. The consciousness is like this field, and within the consciousness, forget the physical body now, within the consciousness are millions of minds, all of our minds. Consciousness is trying to be worked out via a mind that has been taught what consciousness is. And what I mean by that is that the stories that we've heard of these sudden moments of enlightenment, they're not there. They're not there. That's films. That's books. It's fairy tales. That's what happens there. That's not it. I can't speak for everyone. Maybe there's people on the planet that's happened to. I have yet to meet one who said, yes, one day I was this person and next day this thing happened and then suddenly everything became very clear. Everything just felt great, and then they went on to live this wonderful life as a spiritual person. What can happen is, like I've said before, on my spiritual awakening, it was very sudden and very intense. But there was a lifetime before that of struggle, of suffering. And then when that spiritual awakening happened, all I was able to do was see the faults that I had made throughout my life. I always explain it like this. There was a load of dots, and those dots were all the problem areas in my life. Suddenly I was just able to join the lines and think, oh my God, I've been doing this my whole life. I've been responsible. I can't really be to blame because I was unconscious, but I've been responsible for all of these problems my whole life. And so in that seeing the lines, join the dots, I was able to identify the patterns of my unconscious behaviours that were leading me down a self-destruction path. All based pretty much off the thick child that comes in and tells me I'm an imposter, no matter what environment I go into, even if I'm really, really good at it. It would still be there, like, yeah, but this won't last long. So there was always the imposter of the thick child coming through. And so because this has gone on for decades, now when it gets to a point where I have that realization, I see those lines joining, that is the part when I say there was a feeling, something underneath that was telling me everything okay. But if you listen to what else I'm actually saying is, I was in hell. I was terrified, petrified. I was at the lowest of the low. My thoughts had turned to ending my life. And so I was in absolute hell, but there was this thing of, it's okay, you need to be doing this. But that wasn't very loud. That wasn't a very loud, this is where I think sometimes people can get mixed up with the bliss thing. That's not a loud, blissful moment of I walked around feeling really safe all the time because I knew this thing was there. There was just this very faint feeling of, I need to be doing this. But I was terrified whilst doing it. And I'm telling you that little bit there because I really want to dispel this myth that there's this moment of, like this person that I'm speaking to, they developed all a wonderful spiritual practice, and these things help. Being out in nature, trying to eat clean, or even trying to fast, like intermittently fasting and that kind of stuff, can all kind of help with this stuff, leading a clean lifestyle, and you're meditating, and you've just tried to develop a nice spiritual practice. You're indulging in these videos, and you're reading books, and you're learning as much as you can. All of that stuff is wonderful. It does help. But if all of that is being done in the search to attain something, you have to realise there's no attainment. There's nothing to attain to. It's already there in you now. What's stopping you from feeling it in the now is the mind on top saying, I want to know something. We have to become aware that the mind is separate from the consciousness. The mind is trying to figure out what consciousness, what stillness, what awareness, what spaciousness, what isness, what presence is. But you can't explain that. It's one of those things because it's an invisible thing. So this is where they get tricky. The feeling of the consciousness, the feeling of the presence is in the knowing that the mind keeps asking questions. And that's why I said in the other video, just all you have to do is become aware that there's nothing to attain and that the mind is just asking questions. And it's, oh, okay. That's why I joke and I say, oh, I see you. I see what you're doing, trying to ask questions, trying to keep me back here. But that's fine because I'm aware of that. That makes me calm, if you like, peaceful. That makes me in this place of no matter kind of what happens in life, I don't really worry about it. That doesn't mean, guys, that I walk around and everything's like, if something really bad happens, you go, oh, that's okay, I'm aware of it and I feel wonderful. No, it's not like that. But the overall, if something bad happens now, there's no attachment to that badness. Like a little while ago, I lost my driving license, which is why I've not done any videos from the mountains. So, and I get that back soon. But when I lost my driving license, that meant I can't drive. That meant I lost £25,000 worth of work. That meant I couldn't work anymore. But within moments of hearing that I'd lost my driving license, and this isn't something I'm thinking, this is just how it is. I'm like, oh, okay. This will be interesting. I've not had a van to drive since I was 17 years old, and I'm now 49 in August. I've not had a van from there. This will be exciting. I wonder what path this will now lead me down. But guys, this is the thing. There was loads of other stuff going on as well. These are all things that happened from the past life, if you like, from the guy that was. So this is the crossover part. This is actually really important. There are things that you were doing in your unconscious life that when you then wake up and you go in the dark night of the soul and you start waking up more, there's going to be things that come back from that life that physically, in the physical world now, need to be sorted out. And that's how comes I lost the driving license, was because of an incident that had happened back when I was unconscious. I was using my phone basically whilst driving. I was using my sat nav, which was attached to the windscreen, and I got caught doing that and faced a 6 months ban off the back of it. So, but that's a whole nother story. Don't have sat navs in your vehicles if you can't use them, or ban every single person on earth from driving because everybody's done it. But that's a different story. But so when I lost that license, I very quickly went into this mode of, oh, this will be interesting. I wonder what this does. From there, I realised I was going to have no money because it had taken everything away from there. So what that done was then led me into the kind of thinking of, I'll come and live in this caravan. Not practical, but I'll come and do it. And then when you go back to my first video, you'll see me saying, I'm going to leave a string of videos. At that point, I didn't know what that string of videos were going to be in. But so I come and move in here, which was mice infested, freezing cold, this, that and the other. And And it's still like that, except the mice aren't here. It's just that I haven't done any work on the thing because I keep going out for walks and enjoying my life of not having any work to do as such. So the van going freed me of all of that. That's the universe working, because inside me there was always this feeling of, don't forget, I've now awakened and am in the dark night of the soul. And by the way, I hate saying stuff like that I am awakened. But this is another thing. We have to use words for the video. And I don't know another way of how to say that. But at that point, when I had lost the van, I am in that dark night of the soul, or I'm very, very, very comfortable in there now. I see life quite clearly. I see my life quite clearly, and I have this wonderful perception of my life. Then the van gets taken away, and I'm very quickly going to a mode of, oh, this will be interesting. This is another part of the universe directing me down the path I need to be on. That then put me in the freezing cold, mice-infected, leaky roofed caravan that I'm in this beautiful surrounding though. And so I'm in here and I'm freezing away, and there's this underlying feeling, and this feeling is kind of, I want to get my message out. What's the best way to do that? And videos and YouTube had often come into my head, but the thick child kicks in. No, don't do that. Too vulnerable. No one's going to be interested. No one's going to listen. You're going to look stupid and you're going to fail. So I kind of filtered around with that. I don't pay too much attention to that thick child anymore. But it's still there, kind of floating around. And then suddenly one day I'm just on my sofa and I'm like, okay, I need to release the videos because I can't stay in a freezing cold caravan forever. So that kind of then led me to pick up that first video. And my opening line in that first video is, do you know what really pisses me off? And that opening line is there because I don't know what to say on that first video, but I know something needed to be done. And that was the universe. That was my intuitions and the universe guiding me down the path that I need to go. And it's whilst doing all those things, whilst doing these videos, that's where life is now starting to grow. But all of this, the idea I'm telling you this is, when I lost the van, had I still been heavily influenced by my mind, my reaction to facing the driving ban would have been the same as everyone else's around me. Oh my God, that's terrible. What are you going to do now? You've lost all of that work, all that money. How will life, what? I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. What happened to me was, oh, there's a reason for this. If I would still had the van now, guys, I would be going to the mountains. So I wouldn't be doing these videos. I would be in the mountains somewhere, like, getting nothing done except falling in love even more with mountains than I already am. I would be doing that. The taking away of the van gave me the space to then start doing these videos. And off the back of this, I now speak to several of you via Zoom. The channel's growing. I can sort of see myself managing to take this now, not just to the mountains in the United Kingdom, the mountains all around the world, which I'm scared of heights and open spaces. So that's going to be really interesting, isn't it? But, but that's ultimately what I want to do. And because of something that people would deem as tragic, the van taken away, and you lose 25 grand's worth of work, and how will you ever live now? Out of that has come the moment that I am right now, at 9:30 on a Saturday morning in North London, Hertfordshire. That's where I'm at. That is what the surrendering will bring. The surrendering and of knowing that there's nothing. I wish I could go back to the actual moment when I realised what it is that I'm trying to tell you guys now. That we want to surrender, but we ask a question after we say we're ready to surrender. The asking of the question is not surrendering. That means you've not yet fully surrendered. Surrendering comes in realising that you won't understand what surrendering is. Oh my God, that sounds so bad. Does this make any sense to anyone, guys? Because it's a real hard one to explain. And I say that a bit tongue-in-cheek. I know it does. I know it kind of does make sense. But I'm aware as well. I'm trying to give a sentence that will make some of you have this little light bulb moment of, oh, so the questions I ask is the non-surrendering. Yes, That's it. Every question you ask is non-surrendering. And then you might ask, well, what if I'm just asking a question about should I go on holiday or not? That's totally different. It's totally different. That's not a thing that holds you back in life. Although, when you do surrender fully and you do become quite conscious, those things don't become an issue. They become almost non-decisions. You just kind of, there's no mind on top of stuff at all times. It's still there, but there's no mind on top of stuff at all times telling you, what's the best decision? That one or that one or that one? If I do that, then I will do this. If I do that, then I could do that. If I could do this, this noise. Oh my God, I don't miss that noise. I do not miss that noise. So that is not there. And the surrendering comes from realizing that you probably won't truly understand what surrendering is. I can't believe I'm about to say this. Until you surrender. Guys, I'm so sorry. I think I better end the video there because I've got a feeling some of you might be getting annoyed with me now. But I, in seriousness, I hope that gives you some kind of clarity. You are doing nothing wrong. There is nothing wrong. This is what I was trying to say to the guy when I was talking to him. You are doing nothing wrong. There's no attainment. The realization that there is nothing to attain, that it's already there with you, that is where the peace is found. For decades you've been unconsciously behaving in certain ways, and now you're still looking for something. The mind is still heavy involved, even though you may feel a little bit calmer. And that is what makes us feel not so peaceful all the time. That's what makes us agitated or angry or restless, because then we see people like me talking away, and you maybe kind of look at someone like me or these other guys who do these channels or whatever, that you wish you had our peace. You wish you had our, what's the word I'm looking for here, guys? The aura? I don't know if that's the right word. Our presence, maybe, or whatever. I'm very unremarkable. This is what I tried to say in my other videos. I'm a very unremarkable guy. What happened to me was over years of pain. I have to point this out. Over years of pain and hurt and inner work and being courageous to enter areas and that I didn't want to enter, and putting up with just years of trying to understand what surrendering meant until I surrendered and then got it. But then I forgot what the point I was trying to say before that. But you might, that's it. You might think that you kind of want to be like, have that kind of persona, but I'm still a pretty average, unremarkable person. That's genuine. That's not said to be humble. I kind of don't operate in that way anymore. I don't feel this need to impress anybody. I have a message and I want to give that message out, and that's all there is to it. And so I don't say I'm unremarkable to be humble. No, it's real. It's a real thing. When I say I'm remarkable, is I'm trying to say this feeling, this consciousness, this stillness, awareness, spaciousness, that is in all of us. That is the light in all of us. It's there. It gets clouded by the implementation of the system ego that gets put on us of how we should live. The field of consciousness is invaded by the mind. When the mind goes, there's the consciousness. And that's why I say I'm very unremarkable. I'm just like anybody else on earth. Unremarkable, or you could say really remarkable. We're all the same and all have that kind of light within us that's there ready to shine. I would suggest keep reading your spiritual books, keep watching these type of videos, because they do produce those little moments, those little light bulb moments. Watch other channels, watch the spiritual gurus and try and understand. But also, guys, know you're doing nothing wrong, and that wherever you are is where you're meant to be, and it's all just part of the process of the unraveling. The consciousness is trying to spit out the mind. But if you think the mind is going to go without a fight, you've got another thing coming. The mind is going to always be there, coming in from the background and saying, hey, I need questions answered. And that's the battle there, if you like. But yeah, you're doing nothing wrong. You're exactly where you need to be as part of the process. And as well as doing all your spiritual stuff, take time out for yourself. Relax a little bit. When you are having those thoughts of, oh, I'm not going anywhere, just know that you're having those thoughts. That is surrendering, just knowing that you're having them. Anyway, guys, I hope some of you found that interesting. Bit of Saturday morning spiel for you, if you like. I hope it made some of you feel better. I hope it hasn't confused anyone. I do genuinely hope that. And guys, thank you so much for all your comments, all your support, and making this channel what it is. And yeah, 600 subscribers now. I think it might actually be 601 this morning, which is really cool. But anyway, guys, I love every one of you. Beautiful sunny day here, slightly overcast with clouds and that stuff, but the sky keeps breaking through, so it's beautiful. So I'm going to speak to one of you in about 20 minutes, and then I don't know what I'll do this afternoon. We'll see, but I hope all of you have a lovely weekend. Peace. Thank you, guys.